Tui, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. We must be at the grand finale of the Great Movie Marathon. Welcome to Teacup For One. My name is Matt and I have 2 degrees. And friends, welcome to the grand finale of the Teacup For One Great Movie Marathon, a 12-week celebration of the classic Walt Disney World attraction, The Great Movie Ride. Guys, it has all been building to this, the 12th and final week, where we finally get to talk about my favorite movie of all time, The Wizard of Oz. Truth be told, this entire project was kind of just my personal excuse to encourage a bunch of other YouTubers to make Wizard of Oz videos that I could watch for my own personal enjoyment, but it can also be for your personal enjoyment. So that said, I highly recommend that you check out the other channels that are participating in the collaboration for this week. I am going to link all of them for you in the video description down below. But seriously, I cannot overstate how much I love The Wizard of Oz. It's my favorite film of all time, and it's pretty well the reason that I loved the Great Movie Ride so much. I mean, I even have a Wizard of Oz Great Movie Ride pin. It has a tiny piece of the Wicked Witch of the West's animatronic flesh, like forever immortalized in the pin. You probably can't see it. Here's a picture. It's a limited edition. I spent too much money on it. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today is all about the greatest great movie of all time. Take it away, tour guide Matt. Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. How often do you get to say that? I'd say we're over the rainbow in one of the most beloved movies of all time, The Wizard of Oz. Great Movie Ride fun fact. The Wizard of Oz is the picture-perfect finale for the Great Movie Ride, featuring the most advanced animatronic at the time as the Wicked Witch of the West, and Judy Garland's daughter, Liza Minnelli herself, voicing the Dorothy animatronic in the Emerald City scene at the very end. But believe it or not, this finale could have been even more spectacular. The same legal stipulation that led to the Twister scene becoming Fantasia also meant that the ride's grand finale had to be reimagined. So you know how your ride vehicle moved into that big open space with the screens that played the movie montage? Originally, that was supposed to be the Wizard of Oz's throne room. You were going to get to see the Wizard of Oz in all of his fire and smoky glory. And then the curtain was going to be pulled back, and the cowboy or mobster who hijacked your vehicle earlier in the ride was going to be the one at the controls. And then they were going to pull back another curtain and reveal all of the actors and characters that you saw in the Great Movie Ride, and they were just going to take a bow. That would have been so magical. But, you know, a movie montage, that's fun too. Though I will say, it's kind of perfect having the Emerald City scene being the last proper scene in the Great Movie Ride, because in a lot of ways, that scene represents a crucial moment that we see in pretty well every film. That moment where the thing that your characters have been searching for and vying for finally comes into view. If we want to talk about like actual screenwriting terms, I'm pretty sure this is the stage in the hero's journey that's deemed the reward. And I think that's part of the reason that The Wizard of Oz is the perfect choice to wrap up the Great Movie Ride, because structurally and thematically it is a perfect film. Now, obviously, I'm biased. It's my favorite movie. But I'd like to argue that it's my favorite movie because it's a perfect film. But regardless, there's so much that I want to say about this movie because I love it so much, and I had a ton of different ideas of things that I could talk about, and rest assured, all of those will cycle back around in future videos. But for today's video, I thought it would be the most important to just address the question, why do I think The Wizard of Oz is in fact the greatest great movie? And I actually got my answer once I started to research all of the alternate casting options and alternate creative decisions that were almost greenlit for the movie. These are decisions that I'm convinced would have made this not a great movie, not even really a good movie. Just to illustrate it, I put together this concept poster of alternate reality Wizard of Oz. Now behold, the mediocre film that almost was. And I just want to break this down for you bit by bit, because when you look at the movie that The Wizard of Oz almost became, it sits with you like a turkey leg at Disney World. For a couple moments it seems like a really great idea, but then it's ultimately sickening. First, the title character, the Wizard of Oz. Before the role went to Frank Morgan, who was obviously brilliant, there were a lot of other actors in consideration, and someone very close to the top of the list was character actor Ed Wynn, who is probably best known by the Disney community as the voice of the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland and Uncle Arthur in Mary Poppins. And really, the only reason he didn't do the movie is because he turned them down because the wizard wasn't a big enough part. But can you imagine if he actually took the role and did the film? Like, just picture that throne room scene with the Mad Hatter's voice.
I am Oz, the great and powerful. Who are you? Who are you?
If you please, I am Dorothy, the small and meek. We've come to ask...
Silence!
Oh no, I can't. Next, The Wicked Witch of the West. Now, part of the reason that The Wizard of Oz was made at all was as an answer to the success that Walt Disney had 1 year prior with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. MGM decided that they wanted their flagship film of 1939 to also be a big, flashy, family fantasy musical. And because the evil queen in Snow White was such a hit, Oz's producer, Mervyn LeRoy, thought it would be a brilliant idea to have the Wicked Witch of the West also be, like, glamorous and beautiful. So he recruited Academy Award-winning actress Gale Sondergaard to do a screen test for the Wicked Witch. So they did makeup tests on her and dressed her up to look like this beautiful, glamorous witch that was pretty well an exact copy of the evil queen from Snow White. But the entire creative team was pushing against LeRoy, saying, she looks great, but bad witches are ugly. Like, it's right there. It's in the script. This is not going to work. So they tried giving Gale Sondergaard the air quote ugly treatment, but she ultimately decided that the role wasn't for her and she left the project. And they ended up casting Margaret Hamilton 1 week before the film started shooting, and then she just like casually gave one of the greatest film performances of all time. What I find really cool about this story is that it really spells out the mentality that almost killed the movie. The first instinct for a lot of creative and casting choices was to go for something stylish. And I understand the logic. Of course, it would have been really cool to have a beautiful, glamorous, evil witch. But it wouldn't have served the story. It would have been a choice that was prioritizing style over substance. And thankfully, as you will see, substance always won. Something similar happened when the studio was looking at different ways to bring Dorothy's companions to life. Before they settled on just having 3 actors in costumes, they were considering using a combination of live actors, puppets, and live animals. The role of the Cowardly Lion almost went to Leo the Lion, MGM Studios' mascot, who would have been dubbed over by an actor. The role of the Tin Man, okay, I'm not 100% sure if this is legit, but this photo was on the Academy Awards' website, indicating that, at least for a while, MGM considered having the Tin Man played by some kind of puppet monstrosity. And really, in a lot of ways, that is the choice that makes sense. MGM was a major studio that was putting a lot of money and resources into this big, flashy fantasy film. So of course you would want the otherworldly characters to look as otherworldly and magical as possible. But, and I'm not convinced if this is why, but I think MGM learned a valuable lesson from the Alice in Wonderland movie that was made a couple years prior. In 1933, there was this live-action Alice in Wonderland film that had all of the characters of Wonderland look like their book counterparts, and it was terrifying. Like, that movie proved that there's a very fine line between making fantasy characters look whimsical or like something out of a nightmare. In the end, I suspect the choice to just use the 3 actors in costumes had to do with logistics more than anything else. They had a score being written for the film that required legit song and dance men to perform the material, not to mention all of the action sequences like breaking into the witch's castle, which I'm pretty sure puppets and animals wouldn't have been able to accomplish to any great effect in 1939. But even when you look at the early makeup designs for the characters once they decided on having an all-human cast, I think it's clear that the creative team was still making the choice to go with substance over style. And again, substance was always winning. Some of the early makeup tests for the Scarecrow and the Tin Man almost look like something that came out of a silent film. Their actual faces are much more obscured compared to the relatively simple looks that we ended up with in the movie. Looks that had a couple embellishments but didn't hide the humanity. And that right there is the key. The reason the movie is so timeless and so great is because all of the magic is grounded in real, relatable characters. And that brings us to Dorothy. Now, a lot of people have heard that Shirley Temple was the original choice for Dorothy before the role ultimately went to Judy Garland. And there are differing accounts as to why the shift happened. Some people say that Judy was always the #1 choice. The most widely accepted story was that Shirley Temple wasn't a strong enough singer to perform the material that they needed from Dorothy. But whatever the reason, I think this is the biggest bullet that the movie dodged. And please, don't come for me in the comments. Or do. I'm here for the engagement. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on Shirley Temple. I'm not a monster. But I'm not convinced she was a strong enough actor to carry the movie. And if you just want an example of what her performance probably would have been like in The Wizard of Oz, I think you just have to watch The Little Princess, which was a movie that she shot almost around the exact same time.
Do you? Mr. Birdie! Mr. Birdie! Oh, Daddy, you've got to know me. Look at me. Look at me. Oh, Daddy.
She's not bad, but just compare that to Judy in The Witch's Castle.
Dorothy, where are you? It's me. It's Auntie M. We're trying to find you. Where are you?
I'm here in Oz, Annie M. I'm locked up in the witch's castle, and I'm trying to get home to you, Annie M. Oh, Annie M, don't go away. I'm frightened.
You see, Judy is acting, and I would argue that Shirley was performing. Not to say that I think she was untalented at all. I think Shirley's biggest talents were that she was impeccable at being able to memorize material, she was excellent at taking direction, and she was a very good pretender. She was an incredible talent, especially considering how young she was. But when you put the two side by side, especially within the context of The Wizard of Oz, Judy was able to tap into the emotion. And Shirley was able to tap. But regardless of how I feel about their acting abilities, the choice to cast Dorothy as a 16-year-old versus a 10-year-old makes it an entirely different movie. If Dorothy is 10, you have an unsupervised, defenseless child lost in a foreign country where everyone and everything is trying to kill her, and that makes the story a lot less fun. You know, in that case, as an audience member, you just want to see the kid home and safe. As a teenager, Dorothy can fend for herself. We know that she can hold her own and that she can survive in an unknown country, and that is what gives value to her character arc when she finally realizes that even though she can take care of herself, there's still no place like home. The Wizard of Oz is one of the most magical films of all time. And yes, a lot of that does have to do with the visual spectacular. It's an amazing movie in terms of the production design and the cinematography, but I think the reason the film has had such a long-lasting legacy is because of the integrity with which it handled the characters. If the Tin Man were a puppet, we wouldn't care about him getting a heart. If the lion was played by an actual real lion, we wouldn't be invested in him finding his courage. We would just think that's a real lion. He could kill everyone on screen just like that. If Dorothy was in fact a 10-year-old, we wouldn't have the same depth in terms of her journey of self-discovery. You know, the reason this movie works is because all of the fantasy is grounded by very real humanity. And that allows us to care about the characters and to want them to get their heart's desire without being distracted by the spectacle. You know, out of all of the great classic movies, I think this is one of the few that absolutely holds its own here, now, and today. You don't need any kind of historical context or appreciation to enjoy and love this movie. All you need is a heart and a brain. And courage if you're Mackenzie Taylor, because apparently this movie terrifies her. Anyway, friends, this concludes yet another episode of Teacup for One and officially concludes the Great Movie Ride Marathon. Just before we wrap things up, I want to send a heartfelt thanks out to all of the people who supported this project, all the folks who watched the video, and especially all the channels that participated in the collaboration and came along for the ride with me. I also want to give a very special shout out to Jeff and Brittany from Our Paradise Falls. You might remember them from Public Enemy Week or Jeff from Alien Week, because to commemorate this entire project, they actually sent me this beautiful commemorative Great Movie Ride collector's coin. Or I think Jeff actually called it a challenge coin. I don't know the exact title, but it's this beautiful piece where on one side we have some of the Great Movie Ride films represented, and on the other side, we have this beautiful image of the Chinese theater with the saying, "Once a movie rider, always a movie rider." This means so much to me. It's a great way, Jeff and Brittany, to commemorate this project, so thank you so much. I'm going to leave it nice and close to my heart, just like the Great Movie Ride, which I know is so near and dear to so many people. So thank you again to Jeff and Brittany, and thank you to all the channels that helped make this project possible. I couldn't have done it without you, and I guess I'll see you at the movies. And for now, this concludes yet another episode of Teacup for One. Now, let me know, friends, in the comment section down below, what is your favorite movie and why? And if you want to follow me for whatever my next movie adventure might be, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. If you haven't subscribed already, you got a chance coming right now. It's super easy. All you have to do is click on my face. Thanks for joining me again today, everyone. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and that's the Teacup for One. There's no place like home.